Hi everyone, this is Ben Philippe. You're listening to So Booking Cool with Jewel. Take it away, Jewel B.
Welcome to So Booking Cool. I'm Jewel B. I'm very excited about today's guest. He's a journalist, screenwriter, professor, story editor, and the author of the highly anticipated debut YA novel, young adult novel, The Field Guide to the North American Teenager, published by Balzer and Bray, the HarperCollins imprint. He is Ben Philippe. Did I say your name right?
Hi. Yeah, you did. That was actually a point of contention for a while, if it's Philippe or Philippe. And I think everyone agrees it's Philippe.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you're French, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of people who try to put a little French spin on it. I'm like, it's just Philippe. Don't worry about it.
So, Ben, you do write for a living, as I just, established in the intro. But I would love to know, how would you define your story?
Oh, my life story?
Yeah.
Well, I was born in Haiti, and my parents sort of moved us to Canada, Montreal, when I was around 5 or 6, which explains, the weird accent that doesn't really fit anywhere. And I was raised in Canada until college, and I always loved the United States, as weird as that sounds, even though I was pretty much, living just a few miles away. So I moved here, to New York for college, then I stayed for grad school, and I've been here ever since, 4 visas later. So I guess my story is a guy that's been a little all over North America. I spent some time in Texas, some time in California, and that's just still fascinated with it as a culture. One of the weird things you hear about America a lot of the times is that it's a place that doesn't have any culture, which is ridiculous to me because when I was growing up, I was always steeped and fascinated in American culture, and to me, it's this really distinctive set of expectations, aspirations, and I think that's what I wanted to write about when I started writing Field Guide.
Wow. Okay, so is Norris loosely based off of you?
Okay. There are 2 answers to that. One is that no.
Okay.
Because he's supposed to be kind of a little, can I curse?
Yeah, go on, Ben. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think I dropped off for a second there. Yeah, he's supposed to be kind of a little shithead, just a little bit, and I always thought, oh no, I'm writing this obnoxious teenager, and then my friends and loved ones and editor all read it, they're like, oh no, this is just you. So, he's a version of me that's slightly turned up. I think we have sort of different ways of engaging with the world. Norris is a character that just sort of says everything he thinks. And especially when I was a teenager, I was the complete opposite. I would always just keep everything to myself. And I would judge everyone every day constantly, but I would never actually say it. And Norris is a character that just said it all.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. When it comes to creating a character, do you write down traits and physical attributes and all of that, or does it come to you? Does it come to your mind one day? What's the process of that?
I think for me it starts with the voice, which is a very lofty way of saying that I'll write a sample chapter, sort of trying to live with the character for a while, and eventually I just sort of adjust them to whatever feels right. I have to be able to stay in their head for 300 pages or so, so if a character feels completely forced, it becomes really, really difficult to write this archetypical character I have no connection with. So it's always an image that clarifies itself the more you write. So I don't have the physical traits, except black. They're always all black. I don't have the physical traits until later in the chapter when somebody it becomes part of the scene to know how tall this person is, how big they are, what they sound like, how they present. That comes with the writing.
So do you think any of your experiences as a journalist and as a screenwriter and even a ghostwriter as well, do any of these aspects of your career, did it help you to write this book?
Yeah, definitely, because all those things for me all come down to television and movies, which sounds very basic, but that's sort of how, even when I started to do more journalistic pieces, it was as a way of writing about TV. So I was like, I have so many opinions about Game of Thrones, Gilmore Girls, everything. I just want to find a way to share them with the world and still get paid. And Norris is that sort of character that was raised by television and movies. Pop culture would be the spine that we both share. And always sort of, I think dialogue is important to me and always to my right. Oh God, that sounds obnoxious. But like I can't really write a character until I know what they sound like. And all the shows that really influenced my writing were shows where like kids and even adults had like really distinct voices. So Sorkin, Gilmore Girls, like I mentioned, like characters that talk a lot. Because to me, that's always like the best way of getting into someone's head. The minutia of how they interact with the world, how they present themselves, especially when you're writing minority characters. Because if you're a person of color that walks into a room, especially in Texas, the reaction you get is already kind of a little bit of a story. It's rare to enter a room and be fully neutral. So how you then proceed to engage with people, how much code switching you do, all that fun sociological stuff comes into play when writing Norris.
You know, we had, like a couple of months ago, we had Alessandra Balzer come on So Booking Cool, and when we talked, she said how excited she is, you know, because I asked what new titles is she so excited for people to be introduced to, and she like mentioned you right off the bat. Yeah, it made me like excited too, but I was also looking at her Twitter, and that's how I came across you and your book and everything. But yeah, Ben, what would you say that you're excited about people to read the field guide of the North American teenager and getting to know Norris and the other characters?
Thank you, Alessandra. She's the best. I think I'm excited for people to experience a black character that doesn't necessarily sound like what they expect from a black character. Growing up, one of the things that I heard a lot on the playground was that I was kind of an Oreo, meaning that I'm super black, but that all my interests, like my inner self, was white and as basic as they come. So that was always kind of like fascinating to me, that concept. So when writing Norris, I wanted to write just a regular teenager that's like obsessed with hockey and movies and just like, you know, his own inner life, his crushes and stuff, and that none of that stuff plays out how you would typically expect from a black male character. I think we're in a real, especially in YA literature, representation is kind of a big thing these days, which is great. We see a lot of characters that we wouldn't normally see. Like 10 years ago, we wouldn't see characters of color on best-selling books, but I think there's still the expectations that when you're reading a story about like a black male character, oh no, it's going to be sad at the end, or oh no, it's going to get precious. Like it's going to be that sort of story of struggle, and then he learns to play football and gets a scholarship, and you know, all those tropes of like the African American narrative. And for Norris, it's more of a comedy than anything else. There's still stakes, there's still an emotional journey, but it's really about his voice and about this really peculiar kid experiencing high school.
Yeah, it's a coming of age, right?
Yeah. And it's coming, because I just didn't read a lot of that, and I still don't. I identified strongly with those characters, but they were never really black. They never really looked like me. So when I see characters that are just exactly sort of like what came before, they're in the tradition of suffering and eliciting pity or sort of breaking the hearts of readers. I mean, my heart breaks as a reader too, but as a writer, I really didn't want to, it's going to sound selfish, but I didn't want to write a character for 300 pages that was like all about suffering and then possibly getting shot at the end. So yeah, Norris is just a kid going through life and mouthing off when he really shouldn't.
You really shouldn't. Is that what you mean when you say that he says everything that comes to his mind?
Oh yeah, he's rude. He's rude as heck. Some people call it snarky. Like the first few reviews of the book have been coming out, and people are like, "Boy, that kid is really, really snarky." And then you scroll down a little bit, and people are like, "No, he was kind of a little shit." I'm like, "Yeah, that's kind of the point. He's supposed to be, because that's what we are at that age." I think I was a very polite little boy. Did my homework, came home on time, but like we're also pushing against the boundaries of like exactly how much we can talk back to adults, how much danger we can put ourselves in. And Norris was sort of written with all of that in mind.
Yeah, that's smart. I could see a lot of people being interested in him just because of that, though, especially a lot of like the youth too.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm hoping, because I just definitely remember those feelings like when you're, I don't know, 14, 15, like you're still a kid. I'm a teacher now, and like I see young people even up until 18, like you're still a teeny tiny helpless kid, but you have that expectation that like you're a mature adult and that the world is never gonna really hurt you, but that you can push back against it. So like you take the subway and you see these kids that are just like coming in there, being rowdy, talking about all the sex they're having. And you just look at them and you're like, you're not having any sex. You're going to go home and watch some TV and then go to bed and then, worry about your exam tomorrow. But it's that age where you try to like perform how mature you are. And that's definitely a feeling I remember from being a teenager.
That's so true. That's so true. So, I definitely see the field guide to the North American teenager. It's not even out just yet. It comes out January 22nd officially.
They actually moved it up. I just learned this last week. They moved it up to like the first week of January, so it's January 9th now.
Oh, cool. Even better. That's even better. Like the top of next year. Okay. So
yeah.
I see it becoming a movie, Ben. And with you, yeah. So I want to know your thoughts on that, especially with you being a television enthusiast. And are you into film as well, or are you more into TV?
No, I'm into both. I was raised by TV, but film is what I teach for a living, so I'm very much a fan. Yeah, fingers crossed from your mouth to God's ears. I would love it to be a film. It's weird. I have when I try to think of like young black actors, my mind sort of goes blank. I mean, part of me wants to be like, oh, he's based on me, so he should be like Michael B. Jordan, like a chiseled Wakanda figure. But no, he'd just be like a regular kid. I keep thinking like, did you see Moonlight?
Yeah, I saw Moonlight. Yeah, good movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. I think he'd be like the middle one.
Oh, when the character's in high school?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
He's not as cute as he was when he was younger, and like it's really hard to buy that he's going to turn into like the final stage of Moonlight, but he's just like this awkward kid. He's just like a little busted. We can admit it. Like, not a slight against the actor, but like he's just like that perfect age of like peak puberty, right? I was like, yeah, that's how I picture Norris, sort of.
That actor, his name escapes me right now. He was in The Equalizer too.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that like he's probably like, I don't know, 25 now. So he would really be a good choice, but
yes. Because most of
that level of awkward.
Got it.
Okay, now you have me thinking about casting. I'm sorry.
No, that's great.
The kid from Stranger Things.
Oh,
on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's a little black kid that has like 3 lines in 2 years. I'm like, guys, I like Stranger Things too, but can the black kid do something more than just say like, no guys, we should go home. No, let's go on an adventure. That's like all he does. I think that kid would be, I don't know, a good Norris if we're just fan fictioning my life.
Yeah, like if I ever think of some more actors, I'll run them by you and see what you think.
Oh, please do, yes. You have to just be like awkward. That's what all teenagers are. There's the movie Eighth Grade that came out like a few weeks ago, and I thought that movie was, not a few weeks, a few months ago by now, but by Bo Berman, and I thought that was like such an amazing movie because the lead actress in that just captures like that perfect feeling of awkwardness when you're a teenager. Just like, you don't look like you're done baking. You're just like, I don't know. It's really hard to put into words, which is bad to advertise as a writer, but I'm really like fascinated by that stage, which is why writing young adult novels kind of came naturally, because all my characters were always, super young or super awkward and pretending not to be. And that's the teenage experience.
It's very honest. So what is your advice then, by the way, for anyone who does want to write a YA novel?
Ooh, don't be self-conscious about it. I was very lucky to just get the chance to write in the MFA setting. And, when you're in an MFA, you're with all these people who are always like quoting Jeffrey Eugenides or Chabon or just like all these authors that are always tackling life. And that's amazing, but then you kind of feel self-conscious if you want to write about a teenager and bring that into workshops. Because you have like classmates who are like, oh, mine is set in a gritty prison and, really delves into like the socioeconomic forces that like drive the American prison complex. And that's amazing, but sometimes I would come in like, yeah, I kind of want to write about a teenager now. And I would feel a little self-conscious about it. Don't feel self-conscious, because young readers are incredibly smart. They're incredibly thoughtful. And, like, anyone who's over the age of, 25, we're all going to, disappear very soon. And they're going to take over and they're going to save the world. So it's actually kind of great to write for them in mind. And my other advice for writers in general, and this one is really, really specific, but it's worked out for me so far. Close doors and delete Excel from your resume. What I mean by that is that, for a while, my resume was just a bunch of stuff I knew how to do, but that wouldn't make me happy, because the only thing that really makes me happy is writing. So I just, and I would get these temp jobs that, required a lot of Excel, a lot of Microsoft Access, because that's what I was advertising to the world. And then I just sort of started to remove them. So I didn't end up they were small jobs. I was just living month to month. But I was just doing stuff that was close enough to writing that I could keep the passion alive. And I try to live in a way that's I never have to open an Excel document ever again. That's the dream. As long as I can make that happen within the next 5 years, I'll be so happy.
So that's very interesting. So you recommend taking the Excel part off the resume so that you won't have to work with Excel if that's not what someone wants to do?
Yeah, it's not advice that's really sustainable. I wouldn't put it on a throw pillow. But I remember just sort of for a while, I was just looking to get the best job possible, the job that pays the most, so you can keep living in New York City.
Right.
And I would get these jobs that just made me unhappy. That was assistant at a financial desk, that was paralegal, and it was a lot of filing and a lot of math. And I felt that was actually affecting my writing, because I would spend 8 hours doing number crunching, and then I would come home and my soul would just be dried. I would just be putting on Netflix and okay, I'm done. So by removing Excel from my resume, and feel free to cut this entire thing out of the interview, because it is just my mind on a loop of nonsense. But by removing stuff I didn't want to do with my life, I just left the stuff that was related to writing, and I was able to nurture that creative spirit, I guess, because I hear a lot from students who sort of after college, they got a job that was really, really comfortable, and they were kind of miserable about it, and they stopped writing, because writing they didn't have time for it, and it no longer felt like a priority. So I think the best version of this insane ramble I've been throwing out is just try to keep writing in the frame of whatever it is you're doing. If you want to write for a living, make space in your life to write. Doesn't mean like you have to depend on it for a paycheck, because that's kind of a fiction that writers like to tell about themselves these days. But just like make sure that your creative spirit stays lit.
Ben, look, there's no way that I'm going to omit that from the interview. I'm not going to cut that out, because what you just said was so deep. It was so deep.
Kind.
No, it is. And it's going to resonate with a lot of people. No, you got to understand. No, I'm telling you, that's so real, because you're basically saying that first of all, people should not shortchange themselves. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to go for something even better, especially something that fulfills you, something that makes you happy and inspired. It's your passion, so I take that from what you just said, to think bigger. And yeah, that's what I take from what you just said. And I'm sure other people are going to, take that as well.
That's the most eloquent way of like saying what I was trying to get at. It's just essentially just keep the passion alive, keep the things like, I remember I would like write a review of a Game of Thrones episode for like $30. And listen, that's not going to pay like even half my cell phone bill, but it made me happy in a way that, an entire week's paycheck doing paralegal work, no offense to the fine legal firms of New York City, just really did not. And I think finding the balance of like keeping the flame happy, keeping it like lit and going, was what allowed me to eventually be able to write a full manuscript. Because I think at any point I could have been like, well, I don't want to be a paralegal anymore, so I'm going to go back to law school so I can stop doing the menial work. But then that would have killed like the joy I get from writing completely. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
You also, as I mentioned earlier, you have a background in ghostwriting, and I hear that you wouldn't do it again. Is that right?
That is very correct. Wait, where did you hear that?
Your website. I was in the frequently asked questions section.
Oh, yeah. I think I filled out that section and I was like, just a little too honest. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. First of all, are there any misconceptions about ghostwriting that people have? I'm curious to know, and I'm sure others are too.
I think the misconceptions. Okay, the biggest misconception would be that it's like this super rare thing that doesn't really happen. It happens. It's a path that's out there, because, not to name names, but I'm pretty sure Snooki didn't write any of the like 5 books she has to her name. So it's very much a branch of publishing that you can, if you push hard enough, you can tumble into. The other misconception, and that one is a little more personal, like your mileage may vary, would be that it fulfills you. Because for me, for a while, it was just like, as long as I get to write for a living, I'm happy. Like, if it's a screenplay, which 2 of the projects were, if I get to just like pay my rent and all I have to do is write a story, I love writing stories, so I'm going to be happy. But then afterwards, it's someone else's name on something you wrote, and you legally cannot like even try to take credit for it. And I remember that made me feel really sad the first time that sort of kind of became a thing. Mm. So I know some people who are career ghostwriters, like they're able to do it. They have the self-confidence that I lack to just be able to like churn out work after work and not see their name on it. For me, I was vanity, plays a little into it. I was like, no, if I wrote something, I don't care if the entire world hates it. I want them to know that it was me. So those are the 2 misconceptions of ghostwriting that I would put out there.
And what do you love about teaching?
I'm lucky that I get to teach stuff I really, really enjoy. I get to teach storytelling, adaptations, and screenwriting. I think what I love most about it is that I'm on an even playing field with my students. Like, it's not like teaching high school where you have to like generate interest. Because at the college level, the people who take your class have an interest, at least, in the thing you're teaching. So it's not just a requirement that they're checking. Like if they're taking a film class, they're in the film studies department, so they have some interest in it. And they've seen everything, and they've seen movies I haven't even seen. They've seen TV shows I haven't even seen. And that's the great thing about all this stuff, like books and TV shows and movies. Like, it becomes its own language. So even if you're like, oh, I don't have any point of entry into talking with someone, like if you're at a party or at a networking event, you can both have very strong opinions about the series finale of House of Cards. You can both have really strong opinions about like this show from the 90s you both watched. And to be able to sort of like be in a room with 12 people from all walks of life, because it's a women's college and a very incredibly diverse student body. But to see all those people come together to like really sort of discuss and really dissect one viewing assignment with their own perspective is something I really, really love. And I thought, like, to maybe circle it back, I thought that when I started to teach, it was going to be one of those, oh, I'm just getting a paycheck while I try to write on the side. But it turned out to be one of those things that, like, really made me want to write more. Like, I go into class, and then I have my office hours, and then I come home, and I'm just so happy to, like, start writing, because I'm able to feed on all the enthusiasm that these kids have for writing, like a vampire, and just channel it into my own work. So, yeah, it's been 3 years, and so far I really love teaching.
That's awesome. Do your students, I'm sure they know that you're an author?
They're creepy little Googlers. Like, they're at the stage where, like, I'll get into class. It's weird. I use the internet a lot. I tweet more than I should, definitely. But to me, it's all like throwing stuff into a vacuum. So when I go into class the next day and they're like, oh, I saw that thing you tweeted, I'm like, God damn, you're not supposed to. I know technically you have the resources to access it. So yeah, they know about the book, they know about my projects and the website, and I try to, like, you know, push that out of the discussion. Like, let's talk about Get Out instead of talking about whatever I wrote.
It's hilarious. Okay. So, Ben, with the field guide of the North American teenager, what do you want this book to be remembered for?
Funny. Sorry, that's just a one word. If I may, I answered something quickly. I honestly, I just want people to have a good time reading it. And so far people have. I wanted it, because funny is this interesting thing in literature. And I found that, like, it's really rare to find a book that makes you laugh, for me at least. Like, I can count on one hand the books that really engaged me enough on a story level that I, you know, kept reading, but that also, like, I had to put them down because I was laughing, or I remember the jokes to myself and I'm just, like, chuckling on the train. So ideally I would just like this book to be considered, oh, that's a really funny book I read.
And do you see yourself writing another one?
Yeah, I'm outlining the manuscript as we speak for my editor.
That's awesome.
Fingers crossed. Whether or not you see it actually just depends on how well Field Guide sells. So, fingers crossed.
Oh yeah, no worries. Is it a novel as well, and would you write a memoir?
It is a novel. It is fictional, but it's another young adult novel, but it's more about an aspect of young adult Black life that I didn't get to really delve into with Field Guide, which is, you know, wealth disparity. Because in my background, it's the weird thing that, like, another thing I don't feel like I see a lot is people don't talk about money, or when in fact money is like the one thing we think about constantly all day, every day. And growing up as a teenager, I went to a private school, but I was one of the kids from the wrong side of the track. My mom was a single mom. We didn't make a lot of money at all, so that was my dog sneezing. So money was actually a really big concern, and I think when you're a teenager, it can definitely be a concern in your life when you have, like, two side jobs trying to buy a pair of sneakers just so your friends see you wearing that pair of sneakers. So that's more the concern of the new book, which is basically the son of the superintendent of a building, of a really rich, posh building, falls in love with the daughter of, like, the family that lives in the penthouse. And it's like, they start a relationship, but it's about the wealth disparity between the two. And that's ideally what the new book is about. As you've probably noticed, I talk for a very long time when somebody just gives me a prompt. Your other question was, would I ever write a memoir? No one's asked. I don't think my life is that interesting. I think I like fiction more because you can be meaner to your characters in fiction than you can. I think if I was trying to write nonfiction book, I would have a lot of anxiety about who I put in there. Oh God, what's my mom going to say? What's my dad going to say? Jesus, that would all sort of like boil in there. But for fiction, you can be like, well, this character is definitely you, but I gave him a different name, so you can't be mad at me. And that's like the shield I get from fiction that I really enjoy.
Ben Philippe, everyone. Ben, it's been so great talking to you. I could keep the conversation going, but like I can't keep you too long. But yeah, thanks so much for talking to So Book and Cool. Can't wait to read The Field Guide of the North American Teenager. Again, that will be out January 9th, at the top of 2019. And Ben, let everyone know how they can keep up with you and so on and so forth. Like, plug yourself, you know?
Oh, yeah,
if you want to, if you want. Yeah.
No, I'm on Twitter at GoHomeBen, all one word, talking way too much, tweeting way too much. Feel free to follow me and mute me. It'll still make me happy. And my writing is all on my website, benphilippe.com. And feel free to pre-order the book. It's really nice if you have, like, young teenage relatives and you want to give them a book so that their parents will think, oh, you're a good influence in their lives. You're giving them novels. Mine's a good choice, you know, go crazy. And yeah, that's about it.
And do you have any final thoughts? Because I always welcome my guests to share anything else.
On what topic?
Oh, whatever. It doesn't matter. Anything else you'd like to say?
I just watched the new Sabrina on Netflix. I just watched all of it. That's like a wild adaptation to watch after growing up with the original, like, Sabrina the Teenage Witch on ABC Family. When she would just, like, wave her finger and change her outfits. Now she's going to, like, a school for Satanists. Like, she's killing people and sacrificing them. It's a good show. It is, you know, it's doing its own thing. But I was just like, whoa, that is a wild adaptation, man. Anyway, that is my final thought.
Well, that's cool. I haven't seen it yet. I got to see it, but I've been hearing a lot of stuff that it's.
Did you see the original?
Yes, I loved the original coming up. I watched it like every Friday night.
It was amazing, and it was like a sitcom. And in this one, Salem doesn't talk, but Salem is also a demon, and you see him as a demon before he turns into a cat, and it's like a lot's happening. Is it good for you, Sabrina?
Is it Is it creepy? Is it scary?
It's not scary, but it is creepy. It has like a really cool sort of like horror aesthetic. That doesn't super make a lot of sense. I'm sorry. I know this was supposed to be final thought, and then I just decided to go in on it.
That's fine.
Like, it's set in the 60s or 70s, and, like, they kind of forget that after 3 or 4 episodes, so then, like, characters have cell phones. But you know what? It's good in the background while you're cooking.
Okay, all right. Well, you know, Ben, I'm going to check that out. You have to come on So Book and Cool again sometime, and like, we should stay in touch, and you seem like you're a fun person to talk about shows with and film.
It's the bane of the existence of everyone in my life, but yeah, I would be happy to.
And thank you so much to all the listeners, and until next time, So Book and Cool.